Hi there, my name is Ron Rogers, and we are into part 3 of career decisions, good, bad, and whatever. And the key here is bloom where you are planted. I did not want to be a T-37 instructor. I wanted to be a T-38, but that was out of my hands. And, well, I was starting my Air Force career. You need to do a good job or you're kind of screwed. So I had to, buckle down and do the best I could with it. Well, to be a T-37 instructor after I had graduated, they sent me down to Randolph Air Force Base to learn how to be a T-37 instructor. And this is a historic base, Army Airfield Base, very historic. San Antonio is just a great city to live in, and we had a lot of fun there. But learning to be an Air Force instructor is an extremely structured endeavor. It is, and very intense. Well, I got through the program down at Randolph, and I was coming back to Enid, Oklahoma for my career. For about 3 years, my assignment to be a T-37 instructor pilot, and we actually had a house built. It was being built while I was down in training, and when we came back, it was pretty much done. Although I had to do things like put in a lawn, which can be quite an endeavor in Oklahoma. Put in a well and stuff like that. But anyway, this was our first home. And there I am. That's my picture now. By the time that this picture was taken, I was a first lieutenant, 2 years in total service time, and I was assigned to the 8th Flight Training Squadron at Enid, Oklahoma. Now, those of you familiar with the T-37 know that we flew and instructed in the T-37B. The T-37A model, which there were, I think, two of them built. One of them is out at Laughlin Air Force Base, which is a basic training base for Air Force enlisted people, and it's mounted out there. And it was kind of fun. I drove out there, and of course I had my little sticker on my car that said I was the absolute high rank of a second lieutenant, and the car was getting saluted all over the place. It was almost embarrassing. But I wanted to see the XT-37 because it didn't have as big a spin strakes. It looks like it's got some spin strakes there, and the tail was 18 inches short, and it just didn't have good spin characteristics, so they had to make some modification. And that's my wife there and my oldest son there on the wing. Things were different back then. This is a car seat. It's not the fancy apparatus you see now. You could put them actually in the front seat. Not a problem. No airbags. Airbags did not exist. So I had this little, that's my oldest son Mark there again. I had this little car seat there, and I got some decals, and I put danger ejection seat on it. All right, now one of the things you do as an instructor pilot is you solo students in the T-37. And when you start out as a brand new guy, they make sure they give you somebody who they think is a very good student. And Lester was a very good student. He was my first solo. And they have this little thing that when you solo, you get put in the stocks and hosed down. Well, they also have another little custom that the instructor also gets put in the stocks when he solos his first student and gets washed down. The yellow arrow there goes to the student I had just soloed. Of course, then you get to the point where you get your next students, and after the first batch, it's free for all. You just get the luck of the draw. And my next student, I worked and worked with him, and he just didn't make it. I mean, I tried everything I could. We worked hard. He just basically couldn't think real time in the final turn. And he had bought this painting. And he knew I loved the 38. It was kind of hard to, it was hard to keep quiet, but it was pretty obvious that I loved the T-38. So when he washed out, he didn't feel that he wanted this anymore. And I had some of my students over for dinner, him included, where I barbecued some steaks, and he presented me with this picture and a poem that he'd written, which was very touching. But I still wanted to fly the 38 somehow. Well, the base had an FC, a functional check flight function there on base where they flew the T-37 and the T-38. And I got to know the commander of the unit pretty well, a lieutenant colonel. And he was an interesting character. I gave him a check ride. We had to give him an emergency procedures check ride in the T-37, and I failed an engine on him. And it was a steady state flight condition. We were just cruising around, and I asked him, aren't you going to do the engine restart? And he goes, no. And I go, why? And he says, well, if an engine fails from a steady state condition, you're most likely not going to get it restarted. And if you try, you could have some problems because it failed for a reason. You weren't at the edge of the envelope. You didn't have a compressor stall due to disturbed airflow. He says, something's wrong with the engine. If you try to restart it, 9 times out of 10, you'll cause yourself more problems. And I thought, well, that's pretty intelligent. Of course, I had been raised in the ATC, venue where you followed the book exactly. But he was in charge of this operation, and he and I were getting along great. And what they have to do is they have to get a slot. They send you down to Randolph Air Force Base. It's a month-long training. I later did become an FCF pilot, and it was interesting. I didn't get the month-long training out at Edwards, and they basically said, and I'm getting ahead of my story here, but basically said that you couldn't fly FCF unless you'd flown FCF. And I said, well, I haven't flown FCF. And the guy says, no. Tell them you've flown FCF. So I said, okay, I've flown FCF. They gave me one ride as to refresh me on it. Okay, well, I studied like heck. And then I had my check ride with Dick Scobie, the Challenger commander, and I passed. Apparently, I had learned in that one ride what they apparently learn in a month. No, you don't. You can never duplicate the intensity of training that you would get in a month. But I had enough people mentoring me that I did okay. But problem was, I never got to go to the FCF training out at Vance because the colonel was reassigned. And we got another colonel in there. And he had been in T-38s. I believe he was one of the flight commanders. And they needed a slot for a new position. Well, he had his guy that he brought in. And so my whole thing of getting into FCF went away. It's, a lot of decisions depend on your commanders. They really do. And I'll explain one here coming up here. Very significant. But if you got a good boss, you can do well. If you got a boss who isn't so good or doesn't like you and favors somebody else, you don't do as well. Well, there was a big problem in Air Training Command at the time, and it was a big issue with the instructor. See, all our students were getting a high percentage of fighters, the type of assignment we wanted. What were the instructors getting? Well, the instructors were getting such coveted assignments as missile officer. Or you could be in charge of the commissary. Yeah, you run a grocery store. I didn't come in the Air Force to run a grocery store. This was very disturbing. So I decided, man, I've got to try to do something because this is going downhill rapidly. I'm being a T-37 instructor, something I really didn't want all that much, and my job could be even worse. Oh my gosh. Well, time is going on. My son is getting older. He's getting bigger. That's me and him in the T-37. And I got to do a lot of neat things. They had an ROTC unit at Coe College, which was just north of Iowa City, and they needed some Air Force pilots to come in, give a talk. And since I and the other gentleman there had both gone through the University of Iowa, they selected us to go up there. And so we got to fly a T-37 into Cedar Rapids, which was kind of a fun time. Now, I was trying to enhance my career, and I was doing a lot of projects around the squadron. I actually remodeled some rooms and stuff, did carpentry work, and my flight commander basically said, yeah, if you want something redone in the squadron, just contact me. Well, I had arranged through my alma mater, University of Iowa, I got a degree in electrical engineering, I had arranged to do a correspondence electrical engineering course, mostly in stability and control. This was not quite set up. I arranged with my previous student advisor there, dean of the school, to set up a program, and he put this through, and I was getting college credits. So I was doing a lot of things that were looking good. I was very active. And at the time, they had an officer efficiency rating program where everybody got, I think it was like a 9-1, which was everybody could walk on water, everybody was wonderful. If you didn't get that, you know, if you got anything but the highest rating, you were bad. So you had to really go into the write-up to really differentiate whether this person was really good or not. And it caused a lot of problem with people on follow-on assignments because they couldn't really evaluate whether this guy was a good guy or not because everybody was a good guy. So they redid the system and you could only give so many of the top ratings. Well, my flight commander, Captain Rule, liked me a lot, and we got along very well. And the system had just come in, and I got one of the first top ratings. I think he didn't really understand how this was supposed to work or something like that. But I got a top rating, and I had gotten some other things that were looking good for my career, and I ended up getting selected for regular commission. At the time, as the commander there, the squadron commander said, these were very few and far in between. And I got one. So it was really cool. Good enhancement to the career. All right, I'm going on as an instructor, and I talk about this in another video, and had a student who, Lieutenant Clack there, he was had a slot in the Fresno Guard. He was going to fly 106s, had a very beautiful young wife who was connected to a very wealthy family, and he kind of had life made. But he had very serious problems handling emergency procedures. We called him Lieutenant Clank, actually, because he would just freeze up and couldn't function. Well, I worked a lot with him, and some of it was actually off the books because I was giving him more time than he was supposed to be getting. But we got through it. I got him so he could calm down, so he could handle the situation, and he did great. In fact, he went to T-38s, and he did just super, and he went to the 106, and the thing I always felt bad, and I've had many people assure me it wasn't my responsibility because he had been seen by many, many people after me. But if I would have washed him out, he wouldn't have been in the situation where he was doing an intercept on a T-33 out over the West Coast. I was a pilot out at Edwards at the time, and I picked up the paper and saw about how he had broke down and stood up and crashed into the Pacific Ocean and killed himself. So that was something I regretted, but like a lot of people said, that wasn't my fault because he did get up to speed. All right, here we are out in my house in Eden, Oklahoma. Now I have a little thing. I had my first son. A month later, we move, go into the Air Force. There's my daughter. Okay, a month. This picture is actually should be more towards the end because a month after we had my daughter, we went out to Edwards. And on the right side is the two people on the right side are my parents, and on the left is my wife's parents. But anyway, I had heard about this really cool deal. Now, you know, I mentioned that. Oh, that atrocious wallpaper. Yeah, we actually did pick that out. It's kind of scary now, but yeah, pretty atrocious. Oh well, tastes change. Anyway, as I was saying, we had heard about this guy. Now remember I said that instructor pilots were just not getting flying jobs, and it was really bad, demoralizing, and I was trying to figure something out. Well, we had found out that one of the guys from our squadron, actually a guy named Mike, had gotten a job out at the Air Force Flight Test Center as a chase pilot, and that was kind of the secondary job. Your primary job was officer in charge of current ops in the command post. And this sounded cool. He had not only a flying job, but he had a really neat flying job at the pinnacle of flying at the Air Force Flight Test Center. And it was funny. I had a number of people said, well, why would they take you? And of course, once I got the position, they said, that was great that they took you, but anyway, I called up Mike and I talked to him and I talked to his boss, Colonel Sanders. Yes, corn and cluck for under a buck was the kidding, but real great guy. But they wanted me to come out and talk to him about taking this job. And Mike had kind of, greased the wheel for me. Well, in the process, I was doing a lot of things. I was the base liaison officer for the Boy Scouts. And we had an awards ceremony, and as part of it, they invited me, the liaison, and the wing commander, the highest ranking guy on the base. They invited him to come too. Well, I had no idea that the wing commander had won the Silver Beaver Award. I didn't even know what the Silver Beaver Award was. I was a Boy Scout only for a short time, but we had things on base where we had a jamboree and stuff, and I got involved in that. But I ended up working with the wing commander directly because a lot of coordinating this stuff, and it was a base activity and just various things. So I spent a fair amount of time working directly with the wing commander. And I was also in charge of the U.S. government Series E bond drive on base. And that was also another function where they had a big gala type dinner, and I'm there sitting next to the wing commander on that. So I had a lot of interaction with the wing commander, and, we knew each other fairly well. Well, I was trying to, personally enhance myself, career and stuff like that, and I read this book called The Magic of Thinking Big. As far as self-help books go, this is probably the most disastrous book I could have read, because yeah, it's important to think big. People who make it big because they think big. If you think small, you're never going to make it. And too many times in my life, I thought small. Doesn't work so well in the military, because what I did, I'd been on a very good basis with the wing commander, and I just mentioned to him that I had been talking to the Edwards people, and they were wanted to put in a by name request for me, but I had to go out there and see them first. And he said, "Well, why don't you just take a T-37 and go out there?" And I said, "Okay, that sounds like a great idea." So I took a T-37. I went with another pilot, and the interesting thing was it was a 10-leg cross country, 5 out, 5 back, and the airplane worked perfectly the entire time. But what had happened is I had not gone through first my flight commander, then the section commander, then the squadron commander, and then the wing commander. I had missed quite a few steps in the chain of command. Okay, I'm still a new guy, but I should have understood the chain of command. And just because I was in a good relationship with the wing commander, I violated it. And my boss, my flight commander, brought me in. He was an F4 Vietnam guy, and really kind of cool, laid back. And I actually got out of the Air Force because his family was involved in whiskey production. So cool guy. But anyway, he says, "Yeah, you screwed up here." And I go, "Yeah, I realized that too late." And he says, "Well, I don't really care." But the section commander, who I talk about another one who got himself in a lot of trouble. But anyway, he is just livid. So this did not go well with my career at all at that point, because the good OERs were probably going to come to an end. But anyway, I went out to Edwards, and this is a picture I took. This was the sign, historic sign out there. I had a very nice meeting with him. Mike showed me all around the base, and it was just like being in heaven. This was fantastic. This is the pinnacle of aviation out there, and they put in a by name request for me, and well, that's when everything started to get interesting. Now, my career was going along. I was a C flight instructor pilot, and I did the Stanovel and stuff. But the squadron commander wanted me to become the admin officer. And, it's not good to disagree with where they want to put you. It would have been a lot better for my career if I would have said yes, sucked it up, and did that too. Well, unfortunately, the admin officer did not fly much at all. And I wanted to go to pre-pit. Now, what they had instituted in the time from when I had first been an instructor to the instructors now, instead of sending off the new pilots straight down to Randolph to learn how to be an instructor, we gave them some time at the home base to get used to flying in the right seat, which they'd never flown in before, the instructor position, and I flew in the left seat as a student. So we'd get them kind of, there's that thumbs up again. So we'd get them kind of adapted to that, and they'd get a number of hours, so when they went down there, they had a better chance of doing well. So I did that for a while, and I'm waiting to try to get this by name request to go through. Well, they have an opening. So you have to come out to an opening. And they had a major who was in the position, and he screwed up, and they fired him. Okay, I am a first lieutenant at this time, and, I'm in my mid-20s, absolutely no sense of failure, if you will. And okay, they fired a major, doesn't matter, didn't faze me a bit. I should have been more scared, but they said, "Well, we can put in a by name request for you." Okay, this is great. Well, I'm working with personnel now. I have to get a early release, and you're going to wonder why the Thunderbirds are here, and I'll explain in a second. I had to get an early release from the training command, but oh my gosh, I was so valuable. there was this major down there at MPC, Military Personnel Command or whatever, and oh my God, he can't let me go. He just cannot let me go early. I'm too valuable as an instructor pilot. And I'm going, oh, come on, you got to be kidding. So he starts telling me the story about how he had been selected to be maintenance officer for the Thunderbirds, but ATC, the training command, would not release him early, and so he didn't get to go. And because he didn't get to do what he wanted to do, why should I let you do what you want to do? And I argued with him, but he just was not budging. Funny thing, and this is where it comes back to, you want to be careful who you screw over in the Air Force or in aviation, period. I later got, way at the end, I'm getting ahead of my story, I got hired by United Airlines. He later got out of the Air Force and got hired by United Airlines. And he was in the training center, and I saw his picture and his name up on the wall. And I thought about tracking this guy down, but, you know, as they say, violence is not the answer. So I decided just to let it go. But I think it was funny that our paths could have crossed, although they never did. But anyway, okay, so I missed that slot. It wasn't going to work out. They still wanted me by name request, okay, coming out there from the wing commander out at Edwards. But now they've got another slot opening. See, the major they brought in for the major they fired, okay, you following this? Bring a major in, fire him, bring another major in. They fired the second major. This should have been a warning to me. Now, I went through this position. I was never fired, okay, so that's the good thing. I'm getting ahead of my story here. But, okay, finally, ATC doesn't need me anymore. Well, they did, but I had fulfilled my commitment to the training command, and I was up for reassignment. So before they sent me to commissary officer, I get this by name request to go through, and the wing commander, he kind of would still help me under the table here. But we got it to go through, and I got papers to go out and be officer in charge of current ops command post, and the whole deal was they were going to bring me out as a T-38 chase pilot. Well, okay, I eventually got it, and there's some stories in that too, but fly the T-38, not so fast. And I'll tell you in the next episode how that thing all transpired. So you can see there, bunch of career decisions, things you do, getting in trouble with procedures, all these can affect what happens. And it gets to be, it's just one decision, action, turning point after another, and you come to the conclusion that your career could go in so many different ways. It's just amazing. Well, thanks for watching. I hope you found it interesting and enjoyable.